Once upon a time, in the vibrant village, lived a hard-working man named Stephen. He was known throughout the village for his diligence and integrity. Stephen was married to Emma, a beautiful and supportive woman, who was admired for her kindness and strength. They lived in a modest home and shared a love that many in the village envied. Despite Stephen's dedication to his work, he had recently lost his job due to circumstances beyond his control. The loss of his job weighed heavily on him, making him feel inadequate and frustrated. As the days turned into weeks, Stephen's inability to find new employment began to strain their relationship. One sunny morning, Emma decided to go to the local market to buy some essentials. Using her savings, she bought deodorant, soap, and body cream for herself and Stephen. She wanted to make sure they both felt good and looked presentable, hoping it might uplift Stephen's spirits. When Emma returned home with the items, Stephen saw the purchases and his frustration immediately bubbled over. "Emma, how could you spend money on such frivolous things when we are struggling?" he yelled, his voice filled with anger and insecurity. Emma, taken aback by his reaction, tried to calm him down. "Stephen, I bought these with my own money. I just wanted to make things a bit easier for us." But Stephen, blinded by his anger and insecurities, didn't listen. "You embarrass me with your reckless spending. We can't afford this." His voice echoed through their small home, causing neighbors to glance over in curiosity and concern. The argument escalated quickly. Emma, hurt and frustrated, tried to defend her actions. "Stephen, I did this for us. We need to take care of ourselves, even during tough times. You know I would never spend our money carelessly." Stephen's face contorted with rage. "You think this is about the money? It's about you not understanding our situation. We are barely making it through each day, and you go and spend money on luxuries." Emma, holding back tears, replied softly, "These are not luxuries, Stephen. They are necessities. And I wanted to do something nice for you, for us. Why can't you see that?" But Stephen's pride and frustration had taken over his reason. He felt emasculated and helpless, and in that moment, he directed all his anger towards Emma. "You think I need your pity? I don't need you to take care of me like a child." Emma, now with tears streaming down her face, stood her ground. "Stephen, I am not trying to pity you. I love you, and I want us to be happy, even in these hard times. We are a team. We should support each other." The argument marked a turning point in their relationship. Stephen stormed out of the house, leaving Emma alone with her thoughts and tears. She sat down, feeling the weight of their struggles pressing down on her shoulders. She wondered how they had come to this point and what the future held for them. As Stephen walked through the village, his mind raced with anger and guilt. He knew deep down that Emma was only trying to help, but his pride wouldn't let him admit it. The villagers, who had once admired the couple's love and unity, now whispered among themselves, wondering what had happened to the once happy pair. Emma spent the rest of the day reflecting on their situation. She knew that Stephen was struggling with his self-worth and that his anger was a manifestation of his frustration. She resolved to stand by him, but also realized that she needed to take care of herself. As the sun set over Umudike, casting a warm orange glow over the village, Emma and Stephen were both lost in their thoughts, each contemplating the future of their relationship. The heavy argument had revealed deep-seated issues that they would need to address if they were to find happiness again. This incident marked the beginning of a downward spiral in their relationship, one that would test their love, resilience, and the strength of their bond. The next day, Stephen returned home late in the evening. His face was set in a grim expression, and he barely acknowledged Emma as he walked through the door. Emma, having spent the entire day reflecting on their argument, greeted him cautiously. "Stephen, can we talk?" she asked gently. "There's nothing to talk about," he snapped, brushing past her. His anger from the previous day still simmered just beneath the surface. Emma, determined to reach out to him, followed him into their small living room. "Stephen, please. We need to work through this together. I love you and I'm here for you." Stephen turned sharply, his eyes blazing with fury. "You think love will put food on the table? You think your pity will get me my job back?" he shouted. "You don't understand what it's like to be me, to feel useless and helpless every single day. Emma flinched at his harsh words but stood her ground. I do understand, Stephen. We are in this together. I am not your enemy. The tension in the room was palpable. Stephen's fists clenched and unclenched, his body shaking with suppressed rage. I can't stand this anymore, he muttered before storming out of the house again. Emma watched him leave, her heart heavy with a mix of fear and sadness. She knew Stephen was struggling, but his constant outbursts were taking a toll on her. She felt trapped between her love for him and the need to protect herself from his anger. Days turned into weeks, and the situation only worsened. Stephen's frustration grew, and with it, his temper. He began to isolate himself, spending long hours wandering through the village, avoiding Emma and their home. One afternoon, Emma's childhood friend Anita arrived in Umudike. Anita had always been a source of joy and support for Emma, and her visit was a welcome distraction. Anita suggested they go shopping, hoping to lift Emma's spirits. Let's get out of the house for a bit, Anita said with a warm smile. It'll do you good. Emma hesitated, worried about Stephen's reaction if he found out she had spent more money. But Anita insisted, and eventually, Emma agreed. The two friends spent the afternoon laughing and catching up, momentarily forgetting the troubles back home. Anita bought Emma a beautiful dress as a gift, and for a brief moment, Emma felt a sense of normalcy return. When Emma returned home, she found Stephen waiting for her. His face was a mask of fury. Where have you been? He demanded. I went out with Anita, Emma replied, trying to keep her voice steady. She wanted to cheer me up. Cheer you up? Stephen scoffed. So now you're spending more money we don't have? Do you enjoy making me look like a fool? Emma's heart sank. I didn't spend any money, Stephen. Anita bought me a dress. She just wanted to make me happy. Stephen's eyes narrowed. Happy? You think a dress will make everything better? You're just as selfish as everyone else. The argument quickly escalated. Stephen's rage was uncontrollable, and he began to hurl accusations at Emma, each one more hurtful than the last. You want to destroy me. You want to see me fail. You're no better than the rest of them. Emma, desperate to calm him down, tried to reason with him. Stephen, please. I'm trying to help us. We need to support each other, not tear each other apart. But Stephen was beyond reason. He grabbed the dress Anita had given Emma and tore it to shreds. This is what your happiness means to me, he shouted, his voice echoing through the small house. Emma stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. The man she had once loved so deeply was now a stranger to her, consumed by anger and resentment. That night, Emma made a decision. She couldn't continue living like this, constantly walking on eggshells around Stephen. She knew she needed to find a way to protect herself and regain her strength. As she lay in bed, listening to Stephen's heavy breathing beside her, Emma vowed to take control of her life. The road ahead would be difficult, but she was determined to find her way back to happiness, with or without Stephen. The tension between them had reached a boiling point, and Emma knew that something had to change before it was too late. The next steps she would take would not only shape her future but also determine the fate of their relationship. Inside Stephen and Emma's home, the atmosphere was anything but warm. Emma woke up early, determined to make a change. She had spent the night planning her next steps, and she knew she had to act before the situation deteriorated further. Stephen was still asleep when Emma left the house. She decided to find solace in the evening service at their local church, hoping that a moment of spiritual reflection might offer her some clarity and peace. When the service ended, Emma lingered for a few moments, speaking with the pastor and a few friends. She felt lighter, more hopeful, as she made her way back home. But as she approached the front door, her heart began to race. She knew that Stephen would be waiting for her. Sure enough, Stephen was sitting in the living room, his face a mask of barely contained fury. He stood up abruptly as she walked in, his eyes blazing with accusation. Where have you been, Emma? He demanded, his voice cold and sharp. Emma took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. I went to church for the evening service, Stephen. I needed some time to think and pray. Stephen's eyes narrowed, and he let out a bitter laugh. Church? Really? Or were you out with some man, trying to find someone who can give you the money I can't? Emma's heart sank. Stephen, that's not true. I was at church. You know I wouldn't do that. But Stephen was beyond reason. Don't lie to me, Emma. I know you've been seeing other men. You think I don't notice? You think I don't know that you're out there trying to buy more useless things with their money because I can't provide for you? Emma shook her head, tears filling her eyes. Stephen, please. I'm telling you the truth. I went to church. I would never betray you like that. Stephen's anger only grew. He grabbed his phone and started dialing a number. If you think you can fool me, think again. I'm calling your family right now. They need to know what kind of woman you really are. Stephen, no, Emma pleaded, but it was too late. Stephen had already connected the call. Hello? Yes, it's Stephen. You need to come over here right now. Your sister has just come back from some man's house, and I can't take it anymore, Stephen shouted into the phone. Emma's heart pounded in her chest as she heard her family's concerned voices on the other end of the line. She felt a deep sense of humiliation and fear, knowing that Stephen's accusations would cause a rift between her and her loved ones. Stephen ended the call and turned back to Emma, his expression hard and unforgiving. You want to destroy this family, Emma? Fine. But don't think for a second that I'll let you get away with it. Emma stood there, trembling, unsure of what to do. She knew she needed to protect herself, but the situation felt hopeless. She had tried to reach out to Stephen, to help him see reason, but his anger and paranoia had only intensified. Minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Emma's parents, Joseph and Anita, along with her brother Roland, walked in, their faces etched with worry and confusion. What's going on here, Stephen? Joseph demanded, looking between his daughter and son-in-law. Stephen pointed a finger at Emma. Your daughter has been out with other men, disrespecting our marriage. She thinks she can do whatever she wants because I'm not working. Joseph turned to Emma, his eyes filled with concern. Emma, is this true? Emma's voice shook as she replied, No, Papa. It's not true. I went to church. I was praying for guidance, for help with our marriage. I would never do what Stephen is accusing me of. Stephen, are you sure about this? Emma has always been faithful and devoted. Why would she suddenly change? Stephen's anger flared again. You think you know her better than I do? She's been out all evening, probably with some man who can give her the things I can't. Roland stepped in, his voice firm but calm. Stephen, you need to calm down. Accusing Emma without proof isn't going to solve anything. We need to get to the bottom of this calmly. But Stephen was beyond listening. I've had enough of this. She needs to leave. I can't have her here if she's going to disrespect me like this, he shouted, his voice echoing through the room. Stephen's anger seemed to grow with each passing moment. Her infidelity is the reason I lost my job. How can I focus when my wife is out there betraying me? Emma's eyes widened in shock. Stephen, that's not true. You know that's not true. I have never betrayed you. Her parents, Joseph and Anita, looked on with a mixture of concern and disbelief. Joseph stepped forward, trying to calm the situation. Stephen, please. Let's talk about this rationally. Accusing Emma without proof will not help anyone. But Stephen was beyond reason. You don't understand. She's been seeing other men, flaunting it in my face because she knows I can't provide for her right now. And now I've lost my job because of the stress and distraction she's caused. Emma's brother, Roland, could no longer stay silent. Stephen, you need to stop shouting at my sister like that. She doesn't deserve this. Stephen turned to Roland, his anger now directed at him. You think you can come into my house and tell me how to handle my wife? You don't know anything about what's been going on here. Roland stepped forward, his fists clenched at his sides. I know that you're treating her unfairly. Emma has always been loyal and supportive. You're letting your frustration cloud your judgment. The tension in the room was palpable. Emma's mother moved closer to Emma, placing a protective arm around her daughter. Stephen, we're taking Emma with us tonight. This isn't the way to handle things. Stephen's face contorted with rage. Fine. Take her. But don't expect me to welcome her back if she's going to continue this behavior. Emma, feeling overwhelmed, tried to hold back her tears. "Stephen, please. I'm not doing what you're accusing me of. I just want us to work through this together." But Stephen turned away, his voice cold. "It's too late for that, Emma. You've made your choice." As Emma gathered a few belongings, Roland kept a close eye on Stephen, ready to intervene if necessary. The air was thick with unspoken words and shattered trust. Finally, Emma turned to her parents, her face pale and drawn. "Let's go." As they left the house, Roland cast one last warning look at Stephen. "You better get your act together, Stephen. This isn't the way to treat your wife." Stephen didn't respond, his anger simmering just below the surface. The drive back to her parents' house was silent, each of them lost in their thoughts. Emma felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. She had hoped to find a way to save her marriage, but now, she wasn't sure if that was possible. When they arrived, Emma went to her old room, the familiar surroundings offering a small measure of comfort. Back at the house, Stephen paced the living room, his anger slowly giving way to a gnawing sense of regret. He knew deep down that his accusations were unfounded, but his pride wouldn't let him admit it. Alone in the silence, he wondered if he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. The next morning, Stephen woke up still upset from the previous night. He lay in bed for a while, his stomach growling with hunger. He had always been used to freshly cooked meals, but with Emma gone, there was nothing to eat. He had no money and no idea how to fend for himself. As the hours passed and his hunger grew, Stephen began to realize just how much he had messed up the previous night. He knew he needed to get Emma back, but his pride wouldn't allow him to apologize directly. Instead, he decided to pretend he was very sick, hoping to elicit her pity. He called his neighbor, Alex, to help. "Alex, please, I need your help. I'm very sick. Can you go to Emma's parents' house and tell her I need her?" Alex, who had always been sympathetic to Stephen's plight, agreed and hurried over to Emma's parents' house. When he arrived, he found Emma and her family sitting in the living room, discussing the events of the previous night. "Emma," Alex said, slightly out of breath, "Stephen is very sick. He asked me to come and get you. He needs you." Emma felt a pang of concern despite everything that had happened. She looked at her parents, who nodded encouragingly. "Go and see him, Emma. Make sure he's all right," Joseph said. Reluctantly, Emma agreed and followed Alex back to the house. When she arrived, she found Stephen lying on the couch, looking pale and weak. "Stephen, what's wrong?" Emma asked, her voice filled with concern. Stephen looked up at her, trying to muster a weak smile. "I don't know, Emma. I just feel so terrible. Please, can you help me?" Emma's heart softened, and she quickly went to work, preparing some food and making sure Stephen was comfortable. As the day went on, Stephen's made-up condition seemed to improve, and by evening, he was sitting up and talking with Emma. They talked about their relationship and the misunderstandings, and although Stephen never actually apologized, Emma felt a sense of relief that they were reconciling. She hoped that things would get better from here. However, life at home became even more difficult for Emma. She began to walk on eggshells around Stephen, trying to avoid anything that might set off his temper. She went out of her way to make him happy, buying him new clothes, paying for his haircut, and providing everything they needed in the house with her meager salary. Despite her efforts, Stephen's behavior didn't improve. Whenever Emma came home late from work, Stephen would start shouting and accusing her of seeing other men. "Where have you been, Emma? Who were you with? You think I don't know what you're up to?" Emma tried to explain that she was working late to provide for them, but Stephen refused to listen. The accusations and shouting matches became a regular occurrence, and Emma felt increasingly trapped in her own home. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, Emma arrived home to find Stephen in a foul mood. "You're late again. What excuse do you have this time? Which man were you with?" Emma, exhausted and frustrated, tried to remain calm. "Stephen, I was at work. I'm doing everything I can to support us. Please, you have to trust me." Stephen's face twisted with anger. "Trust you? How can I trust you when you're never here? You're always running off, leaving me alone. Do you even care about this marriage?" Emma felt tears welling up in her eyes. "Of course, I care, Stephen. But I can't keep living like this. I need you to trust me and support me too. But Stephen wasn't ready to listen. Save your excuses, Emma. I'm tired of hearing them. Feeling defeated, Emma went to their bedroom, tears streaming down her face. She knew she couldn't go on like this much longer, but she didn't know what to do. She had hoped their reconciliation would bring peace, but it seemed to have only made things worse. As she lay in bed that night, Emma decided to plead with her manager to see if they could employ her husband and put him in another office branch. She hoped that if it worked, it will make things better in her home. Please stay tuned for part 2 of this story, which will be coming soon. We will learn what happened when things turned around in this family and how wicked and unpredictable people can be. Keep smiling, and until next video. Goodbye for now.